Welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Stensrud. I am the owner and coach of CFL Coaching. I'm also the host of our new podcast called Masters on a Roll. We get to highlight and talk to real cyclists over 50 who have created great success through setting high goals and overcoming obstacles. And today's guest will be no exceptions. Today, we're going to just talk about their experience at Leadville, the Leadville 100. 100-mile mountain bike race, I believe, and they can correct me, I think it's 11,000 feet of climbing. And oh, by the way, you start at 10,000 feet elevation in Leadville, Colorado. If you don't know about Leadville and you want to learn, these two people are probably the two best ambassadors you can have. So we're excited to have them with us. So I like to call them the power couple, the dynamic duo. They are Minnesota bred. They are mountain bike extraordinaire. They have been on multiple podiums throughout the years in different events, locally and regionally. They are just superstars in every sense of the word. I'm extremely excited to introduce our guests, Patti, Schmidt, Iverson, and Al Iverson, who by also, when they're not biking, they got one of the top real estate companies at teams here in Minnesota and Lakeville. So I'm sure they're pretty busy now that the warm weather has hit. So welcome, Patti and Al.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
I wish I was where you're at. I'm down in the basement and you're in their palm tree. So I appreciate you taking time to talk with us today too. There'll be a lot of listeners. I think the lottery just started, right? Was it two weeks ago?
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, this is such a big event. We'll talk more about the event, but what's the lottery? How does that work?
So I think what happened with the history of Leadville is it started out as kind of a cult event and really one of the first original 100-mile or off roads and tons of climbing, and a few hundred people would show up, and it kind of gradually grew, and then it got the Tour de France effect. You had Floyd Landis, you had Lance Armstrong, and all these big name people show up, and all of a sudden everybody in the world wanted to do Leadville, and hence the lottery.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lottery before. Lance, I remember when Lance did it as a roadie, I thought, what's Lance Armstrong doing a mountain bike race? And then he went out, I think he lost or he won, but the guys that won it pushed him to the max. I was like, this is a crazy event. So that's when it really launched. So the lottery now, I know that because I have a couple athletes who had called me and said, I'm in. So it's like Christmas for them. Now, I don't know for you, you don't have to go through the lottery, right? You're kind of royalty. You don't have to worry about that, I'm assuming, right?
I think once you have 6 Leadvilles down, you actually do get in.
Yeah.
Because their goal is they want people to hit that 1,000-mile buckle.
Ah, and we're going to talk about that because that's something really special. I've learned about the buckle. We're going to talk about that too. I thought the good place to start, and you did a little bit of this, Al, is just talk about the history. There are many mountain bike races, right? There are a lot of endurance mountain bike races that are challenging, but there's something, the mystique about Leadville. And it's an event. It's like Woodstock. I see the videos, I see the people that do it, and it's an event, and I don't know what it is. I thought you could describe what makes this a little bit different or a lot different than most mountain bike events.
It's soul searching. The whole, and for people who have done this event, they'll know that it truly has a dig deep mentality. You push yourself harder than you could have or would have, and honestly, it's a hard event, and I think it's daunting even when you've done it 12 times. Like, we're seasoned, and to be able to, you get emotional.
Yeah. I think that one of the unique things about it is the altitude that you mentioned, Mike, where you start at 10,000 feet, it goes as high as 12,600. If you're not living above 6,000 feet, it's just trying to breathe is a challenging thing. And it does have that incredible mystique to it, and it really does have it. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's almost a spiritual event.
It is very much, even from the drive to the race start that we've done 12 years. We've always said a prayer on the way, and it's been deeply spiritual for the two of us. And to finish that event is just, it's ecstatic. And the people that you meet throughout the race, just like on our group rides, like that's your family. And you so look forward to riding with them during that event. And as you know, those are your people for the day. Their event, you find your people, and you enjoy your people.
It's created an incredible community. When we look back on all the cycling we've done and think about the hundreds, if not thousands of hours of training for Leadville with different people and the friendships that have been built over that and over the years, and all the different racers we've met from all over the country and the world. It's really a just incredible community of people.
I get that feel. Just watching the videos, there are different ones that come out all the time and out on YouTube, and you could just tell the excitement and what people are just about to endure the next day. If you're a Tour de France guy, or if you're a first time Leadville, you're all part of the family. Everyone's on the same level and in the same experience.
I think that's so true, Mike. We've made so many great friends in the race, trading polls and talking to each other how miserable and we can get through this, encouraging each other.
Every year
Yeah, that's great friends that you have when you suffer like that. I know what you mean. I've been there. I've got friends that I suffered in races, and they're almost brothers to me. So I get that.
Yeah.
I've over the past couple races of Leadville, I've taped lyrics to songs on my handlebars, because to me, that's gotten me through my day. And it's funny because people ask, well, what's the song of this year?
What is a song? What kind of songs? Okay, you open the door. What kind of songs motivate you when you're riding?
Me to the Moon.
Nice.
Jack Johnson's, but pancakes.
So it's not like AC/DC. You couldn't do that for 12 hours, right? You couldn't just have a headbanging music going in your head.
But you forget the lyrics in about one sentence. So you have to have them. I write them down.
I love it.
Your time splits, but I think that kind of went out the window. We're like, well, let's just get through the day. And I think the daunting part about Leadville is you have to have the training in a bag. You have to have your nutrition set up.
Yeah.
You have to come in low weight. And then it's like throw dust to the wind, because you've got weather, you have altitude, the changing day. I always say this race doesn't start until after Pipeline 2. That's when the race starts. And that's when, people are like, well, I got to mile 75 just fine. I'm like, well, that's great. It's a 100-mile race. And it's those last 25 miles that make a difference. Because you feel different.
And there's a cutoff, right? I mean, you don't get to finish. You have a cutoff.
There's cutoffs at mile 40, 60, and 75.
That's Pipeline 2. I made that the first year I did Leadville. I made that cutoff at Pipeline 2 by 10 seconds. The guy behind me got cut.
Oh, brutal. Let's give the listeners an idea what that course is like. I kind of know it starts up hilly.
It's actually 104 miles that I was greatly disappointed to learn my first year when I was at 500 and I had 4 miles of climbing left.
Like,
I'm writing that down. 104. Okay.
You actually start, it's a little tricky at the start. It's a fast asphalt descent. You just, you're going downhill for 4 miles before you hit the gravel road and then the climb up Keevens, where it almost comes to a standstill. So your gearing becomes very important when you are surrounded by thousands of people to be able to stay on your bike and not have to walk it. That's where it does get pretty steep on that first climb. But
the course is a combination of a little bit of tar to connect the, off-road, a lot of Jeep road, a lot of gravel road, some single track, a lot of Forest Service 4-wheel drive only type trail, 3 big climbs out and back. So the pinnacle is you turn around at the highest point in the race at 12.6. That's called the Columbine climb.
By the way, don't spend any time there to any athlete,
because you're too high.
Yeah, and you get honestly you're dizzy.
Deteriorating.
That's what I've told new riders is just get out of there, get back down.
I want to remind our listeners too that Patti and Al are training likely in Minnesota, right? Unless you're going to, so you're at
Yeah.
1,000 feet. You're doing all your training at 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think people need to realize that, and that makes it really challenging for coaching or for training. What it's going to be like when you get out there at 10,000, you're not going to have the power. Your heart rate's going to be different. It's a massive
Throw the
change.
concept off the window
Yeah.
for this race, because you will be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is it's sometimes about survival.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot
Same
like
with-
that.
You have as you know, you only have so many matches.
Yeah.
And you cannot burn matches at this race without ending up quitting early,
All right.
because that will mess with you.
Oh, these are all great tips. I mean, we're going to get in more. So I hope people listening are hearing all this, writing this down, because if you're going to have a successful, I've had people not make the cut, and I know the disappointment. So as I listen to you, and I hope that people do the same and listen to the words that you talk, because you probably have had every challenge faced you and every setback, and to do it 12 times, obviously you've mastered it. Let me ask you about just your journey. This is the fun part. So how did it start? Who thought of it first? Whose great idea was it to go and get your bike and go out to Colorado and ride for 12 hours?
I think we first heard about the race from actually Peter Spencer. Peter had done it one of the first 5 years when it was kind of that small cult event. And I think when he did it the first time, it was 200-300 people.
Wow.
And he said,
And-
never again.
Yeah, he was a never again guy at that point. And our friend John Sandberg kept bringing it up, and I always kept vetoing it because I hate altitude. I absolutely.
But you know, Mike, everything
do well.
starts with the beer, right?
That's true. Yeah,
Right.
all good things happen around at a beer, and
Yeah.
so that's
Like,
good to know.
Yeah. And one night around beers, after clearly too many, I agreed to do it.
Yes.
And so we set off. It was John Sandberg, Chris Sir,
Colin Hatcher.
Colin Hatcher, Patti, and myself.
Let's do it.
Signed up to do it.
Mhm.
And away we went, started training, and had no idea what we were going to get into. Or
Well, and the reason we even came back the second year is because that first year I made that pipeline 2 cut off only by 10 seconds. And it was everything I had in me to just get to that checkpoint. I was sick, altitude sick. And I know that.
Oh.
I lived in Salida, Colorado back in 93. And we had only come out the day before. And I just remember thinking, I can't keep food down. And here's the deal. If you're not eating, you're not finishing.
Yeah.
And altitude sickness will mess with you. And even really good athletes suffer with this. And that's why it's so important to do some training at altitude. But long story short, I didn't finish. And at the top of pipeline, I was sick, and
which is mile 80.
Yeah. And Ken Klober came up with he's the sweep, came with his 4-wheeler.
Ken
Oh.
Klover's the
says-
founder of the race.
Yeah.
For those that
Which
don't
I've
know.
heard of him. Yes.
Cool. And he cut my medical tag, which is the worst, brought me in on his 4-wheeler. And of course the boys are already in saying, one and done.
Yeah.
We're done.
So
We don't
we-
need to do it again.
So
And
we
I'm
had,
like, oh no,
we
oh
had all
no.
finished, got our buckles, hardest thing we've ever done. And we all said unanimously, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. We would never do that again.
And
That
I-
was
Famous
way.
words.
And then I come in on a 4-wheeler, and I don't quit anything. I mean, if people know me, I don't quit. And it became a health issue. And I realized really fast that, hey, next year I got to get out here early and get in that altitude and train it and understand what it's like, and find nutritional things that I can eat at altitude, which is very different from sea level. I have to eat very different
Yeah.
at an altitude
Yeah.
race with another race. And that's how we came back the second year.
Yeah.
And you
Somehow
had-
that rolled
and you-
into 12 years.
And you had to now your job was to talk Al back into he already did it. You got to talk him to doing something he said he's never going to do again. That's probably the hardest thing.
Well, the really fun part, and how even Lifetime got involved with this, is, Ken Klober said, here's the deal. I know you're going to train. You're going to get it right. You get yourself, at that time, you could have 7 people in an envelope. You either all got in or none of you got in.
Oh,
So right away, we had our 7 people filled. And that's when Bahram Akradi says, well, I'd like to do it. And I said, well, you're number 8, Bahram. And he says, well, you know that guy, Ken. So we called him. And we actually, that connection happened really because I didn't finish the first year and we wanted to come back. And that's where the connection with Quest was a main sponsor. Ken needed a
Well, and they
different
lost
sponsor.
their main sponsor. That's where Lifetime
And
came
Lifetime
involved.
jumped in. So
Yeah.
that's how Lifetime got involved, and that would have been in 2008.
What was it like when you finished that second time? I mean, can
Oh
you
my gosh,
imagine? I would have been crying. I'm crying just
I
thinking.
did.
I think
And you know what? My time was 12:12 the second year.
So she still didn't buckle.
I still didn't buckle, but
She didn't.
honestly, it was my favorite year. I was ecstatic. I was in tears. I think Marilee and Ken were in tears because they were so happy I finished.
Wow.
And back at that day, I still remember it. And I thought, you know, this was a bucket list just to finish because it was so daunting the year before. And then every year since.
Well, and I think the great story there is for Patti is it took her 3 tries to get a buckle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the buckle.
That's kind of the cult thing about Leadville is to get the buckle.
And it's 12 hours or less.
And it's 12 hours.
12 hours. Okay.
Yeah. It's a bigger buckle at 9 hours or less.
Yeah.
But everybody wants that buckle. Yeah. But for Patti, you know, she persevered, figured it out. It took her 3 years and then she did it 10 years in a row.
Yep.
Wow.
And so it's a great lesson in perseverance, learning, figuring out, make it work for you. Because it's hard. It's really hard. And then you fight weather. I think we've been rained on
Snow.
at least 3 out of 4 of the years. You know, sometime during the rain, the day rain, snowed on 3-4 times, hailed on.
Wow.
You know, a normal day would be to start in the high 20s. And sometime you may have an 80 and it may go from 83 to 45 in a half hour.
Yeah.
I know what those nerves are like. That would be something. First time you're sitting in Leadville, you're at 10,000 feet, you're nervous, you're freezing, you're wondering what the heck did I get myself into? But then you're around all these people. I've seen the start, and I'm like, that must be just emotions beyond. I mean, just everything, and you can't wait for that gun to go off, and you know it's going to be an epic day, and you go for it. 12 times. So the buckle is 12. Tell us the significance of the 1,000. Is it the 1,000-mile buckle?
Well, so that's the 1,000-mile buckles for 10 years under 12 hours. Then you looks like you won the World Wrestling Federation.
Do you have them on right now? Do you?
we don't.
They're in their rental at home.
Oh, that is so cool.
We're kind of proud that we're really one of only 2 couples that have jointly have the 1,000-mile buckles.
Wow.
So,
Roxanne and Ty Hall are the locals that have the
they own Tennessee Pass. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure there'll be many more couples to do it now. It's actually been a great kind of view into endurance sports, in that when we started this thing, that craze was just kind of taken off, and now it's mainstream. And frankly, the athletes are better trained, they're better coached by people like you, Mike. And Leadville went from really having about a 60% finish rate to now it's like 85% because people come.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting to know that. That's good. That's really interesting. The equipment's gotten better, but you're right. Now we have power meters, nutrition's such a big deal, and people like you coming back, sharing, saying, hey, here's what you have to do. Let me ask you about couples, because I have a couple. Karen and I ride all the time together. If you look behind, we have our Zwift bikes here. We ride together. It's got its own dynamics. So do you ride together? Are you competitive?
Well, you know the phrase, those that play together stay together. It's true. And there's so much time that is needed for a cycling training regimen, especially when you're training for Leadville. And that means your days on the weekends are back-to-back really long rides. You get your tempo rides in during the week or your group rides. And as you know, as a coach, you would have a schedule. We
probably train together 75% of the time. Not 100%, but 75. I might have a group ride to do that she doesn't do, and vice versa. But we do most of our training together. And then when it comes to race day, we each do our individual race.
For Leadville, do you start training now? Would you start, Is your training, does it start in January? Do you take some time off, or is it a year round now? You just kind of get in the same routine?
I'm more of a Nordic skier in the winter, but that's a great way to cross for cycling. We usually start about now. So
yeah, I think our cycling
sorry, March.
year kind of training starts seriously in January, laying base miles down, and then when March shows up, it's like, okay, we better get really serious.
Yeah.
And that usually lasts through probably September. And then literally we look at fall as kind of a pure fun, like.
So do you use power meters? Do you use Zwift? Are you indoor training, that type? Are you more old school outdoors? I mean, it's a little bit of both. Not everyone's gone indoors. It's gotten a lot more popular, but still a lot of people, we still get grief because I like doing it indoors because I can just do it, I'm done. And everyone gives me grief, like, get outside. So I still love outdoor riding. Don't get me wrong, but it's a different way to train.
I think you're on it, because if you want that very scientific training, especially those couple workouts during the week that you would say to any of your students that you have is, whether it's tempo or any kind of anaerobic thresholds training, we do those inside because it's.
Yeah, I love working power inside much more than outside.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. Leadville's going to demand that because it's going to bring you to those zone 5s, and you don't really want to go there if you're going to have a successful day. And so you have to train that high end as much as you can in addition to putting down those long miles.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Your heart rate can be higher for less power out there than it would be at home.
I was out to Colorado a few months ago. We'd stayed out there for a little bit. And so I brought my bike out there, and I'm a data geek. So I know everything. I was out and I was 30 watts less when I was in Colorado. Yeah. Same effort, same heart rate, couldn't get as high. But interesting, I don't know if this is scientific, so if it's wrong, don't anyone. But I could go just as fast. So I must have cut through the air quicker, but my speed was the same, but my power was like 30 watts less. So I thought that was an interesting thing. But uphill, it was tough going uphill just because I'm a bigger guy. But I like climbing. I'm just jealous I don't weigh 120 pounds, and because I really do like climbing. So beautiful.
I can feel your pain.
We're power guys, right? There's still room for us. And you're still doing it, Al. And you are 65, right? Can I say 60, that? Huh?
66.
66. Look at that. That's amazing. And you have to just focus on, and you keep, every time I see any kind of event, you're not on one of the podiums, you're on the top step, and you've been that way forever. And same with you, Patti. It's really inspired to see you guys keep going and keep going. So what do you do when you just relax? What do you like to do?
We ride horses.
I was hoping you'd say that, because I do see you riding horses. Are you both horse people?
We both are. In fact, when I met him was at Schwamigan back in, I think 2000 is where I met him at the race. I knew Peter Spencer was kind of our intro to each other. Yes. Yeah. So Peter and I go back a long way. We used to do adventure races together. But interesting enough, I thought, oh my gosh, he's a cowboy that wears spandex. When does that happen?
I can see that, Al. I can see you just sitting there with, got your chaps on and just like, yep, I can see that. And Al, were you high school, college? Did you play sports? Where's your background?
Yeah, I was the traditional kind of kid growing up, baby boomer. I played football, baseball, I wrestled, I boxed some, kind of those things. I played hockey. All fast twitch stuff.
I was going to say, you sound like a fast twitch. I was the opposite. Yeah, I was not like that.
If somebody would have told me you're going to end up doing, 10-hour races, I said, you're out of your mind. Like 101 yards was a long event to run.
Well, it's amazing transformation, to say the least. All right, let's end this way, because I know you're busy and you've given so much time here. Just for the listeners, because I know a lot right now that people are just thinking about Leadville. I know some of their training. I know some people are getting ready. Hopefully they'll have the event this year. Can you think of like 5 tips that you could give them to say, hey, here's some of the things we missed. Don't do this. What would they be for those beginners? And it doesn't have to be in any order. It could be 3. It doesn't have to be 5. Just what would you tell those people?
I think know what nutrition works for you, and realize it's very different at high altitude versus at sea level. And as you know, as you hit that 8-hour mark, something physiologically happens where you're doesn't work quite as well. Like put in those long miles, long hours to test it out.
When you say
And-
long, how long a rides will you do? What's the longest ride that you do?
Probably 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to do 12 hours to get ready.
So a couple things that really come to mind for anybody going to Leadville. One is the most important thing I could tell anybody come race day is ride your race and nobody else's.
Right.
Make sure you've done your training, that this is not an event that you can cheat. You can't just show up and will it. You have to have paid the price ahead of time.
Well, and with that is also weight. Weight is not your friend. You know, you have to be really dialed in to literally go in as lean as you can. And that's going to save their day.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And any last parting words?
Well, thanks for having us on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
You're such a great ambassador for the sport, Mike.
And Mike, if you
Thank
have
you.
anyone that is, hey, can we chat with them? You know, find us on Facebook, message us. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah,
Oh, that's awesome. So thank you so much. Good luck on your real estate career. I know we'll be busy when you get back, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks
so much.
Mike.
All right. Take care.